Hey everyone, back again for another episode here with Adam Andres. This episode, we're going to talk about funding. Now, we're not going to go full A to Z funding because there's a lot, and we want to make sure we spell it out carefully without going into too much detail because that's your counselors for, right? Yep. So today, we're going to limit the conversation to I am getting out of the military, break turn. I want to use a skill bridge to go maybe get some flight training, go get an A&P rating or something, and I want to use GI Bill. What does that look like? Break turn is no funding source. We are time processes. There's no money that comes with break turn or with skill bridge for that matter. But you can use GI Bill on a skill bridge. But what does that look like? What are the limitations? What should people know about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very detailed kind of question that we'd encourage you to reach out to your counselors and ask these questions with. But generally speaking, there's three kind of buckets that you can use your GI Bill towards aviation training. We'll call it. It won't necessarily just be flight training, but we'll cover some of the nuances there. Bucket number one is vocational flight training. Vocational flight training or vocational training period could also include your A&P if the course is covered underneath certain frameworks. Encourage you to constantly check the VA WEAMS website, WEAMS. That'll show you all the providers that are out there that are GI Bill approved for vocational training and some other things too. But just on the vocational side of things, here in 2024, it's a little over $15,000 worth of flight training or fees that you can get paid for.
15 per what?
Yeah, so
sorry.
No, you're good. You're getting ahead, but that's good though. Yeah, $15,000 per academic year. That's it. So let's say you spend $15,000 in 3 months, which is very doable in aviation, by the way. Very doable in aviation. Then that uses 12 months of your GI Bill benefits, your eligibility. So that obviously is, if you're going for dollar for days, that's kind of the equation that's really high for what you want to do. Bucket number two is private universities. So it's a little over almost $25,000 right now in 2024. Again, that's per academic year, but there's a huge caveat here. So let's say you spend that same $15,000, in those 3 months. If you're going to a university or associated with a degree program, it's only going to cost you 3 months of GI Bill benefits. So it's only going to cost you about 90 days for that same $15,000. And then obviously you can continue to use that later on. Public universities is kind of the third bucket, and that looks very similar to private universities, but there's no cap. Essentially. So anything that's approved by the state can be funded. So, those are kind of three big buckets: vocational, private universities, public universities. And again, on the A&P side of things, on the additional training, we see a lot of the vocational side because that makes sense. It's not as expensive. Yeah. Whereas flight training, it really just you got to determine how far you want your GI Bill days and dollars to go.
So I have two questions. One, to make an analogy, I've been told, you can use your GI Bill to go get your scuba ratings, right?
It is possible.
Would that be, which bucket would that, to make an analogy, would that be in what, the vocational bucket?
That would
15K?
fall into there's obviously if something is, if scuba is a part of your degree program, I'm sure that exists somewhere in the world, but not in the world we generally operate in.
Okay. And then a question I've gotten before is, you said 15K per year. Is there a reset button year, or is it from the time you take the first dollar, it only resets a year after that? Or can I use 15K until December 30th, and then January 1st, I can use another 15K?
No, so this is per academic year for all three of these instances, and that resets every August. And the dollar amounts, the reason we're using 15,000, yes, it's a round number. That does change year to year. Yep. So just in case you find this in the future, right now in 2024, it's a little over $15,000, but you can find that on the website. That's very easy to find.
And the other question I have is, when you say it's not capped, understand, so there's not a infinity symbol anywhere, but generally what are we looking at? Because I'm trying to share with everyone when we give macro quantities. So we said 15K a year, 15K 3 months. If it's this bucket three, if you will, is it 20K, 50K? It obviously depends, but how high have you seen it?
Yeah, so it's been really high. We've seen $60,000, $70,000 in a semester before.
Yep.
And I think we've definitely seen that in a semester before. So it definitely exists. There's a few little caveats here I do want to highlight though. Vocational flight training you cannot use for your PPL. So those of you out there that are looking for your PPL, vocational flight training is not going to get you there. Your private pilot license in the private and public university sector, you just got to determine whether that's a few things, whether that's in person, whether that's included in your degree program or not. So there's definitely some caveats there that you have to watch out for. But just keep in mind, vocational flight training is not going to get you your PPL, which we talked about the $15,000. That's a great kind of barometer for your PPL right now. That's kind of, do I want to spend a whole year of benefits just on one rating? That's a tough pill to swallow, I think, for a lot of folks.
Yeah, this is and we appreciate you answering those questions. We were trying to keep it very specific to those 3 buckets because another episode we're going to talk about, how do I fund my PPL, right? Yeah. There's different funding sources out there, different benefits you have as a veteran, right? We're going to touch on those later. We just wanted to give people an idea of what they're looking at. And honestly, if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, I'm confused, you lost me at bucket 2, fine. That's what our counseling team is for. Yeah. We just want to share the information so that you can kind of get the idea of the lingo, right? We're learning phraseology like we do in the military. You learn different ways of speaking, right? We're trying to share with you ideas so that when your counselor talks about it, you have a general understanding on what these terms mean. So definitely use your counselor.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the one last piece I would leave with most folks is that you do not have to use your GI Bill to go onto a SkillBridge here with BreakTurn or for any provider for that matter. Very true. But the opposite is true too. They cannot require that you use your GI Bill either. So it is up to you. Each individual service member is going to need to make that decision for themselves.
That's really good input. Cool. Well, thanks for answering the questions. To break that down is so pertinent because the internet and even the AI, it's sometimes super cloudy. So appreciate you breaking that down. And next episode, we'll talk about other ways to pay because aviation's expensive.
That it is.
Appreciate you guys. See you next time.
Thanks.
Broad girl, whiskey's gonna ease my mind. Beach towel dress on the drying line.